So in this video, I'm going to do a quick sample rundown of exactly what happens in a parliamentary debate round, just so you kind of get a sense of the flow of the round, how it works, kind of all the ins and outs that happen during each of the different speeches. So let's start from the very beginning. What's going to happen is you and your partner are going to walk into the room, you're going to meet your competitors, and you're going to meet your judge. Now, the first thing that has to happen is we have to choose a topic to debate for the round. So the judge is going to have a little piece of paper in their hands that has the topics in it. You're going to get seated, and I'll show you kind of how to sit once we start the actual competitive round part. But put your stuff down, and then you're going to talk to the judge to get your topics. Now, when you go into the round, you're already going to know if you're going affirmative or if you're going negative. Occasionally in tournaments, they might use proposition, meaning affirmative, and opposition, meaning negative. So if you hear prop and op or affirmative and negative, you kind of get a sense of what that means. But one side is advocating for the resolution. The other side is going to advocate against the resolution. So AF is going to get the topics first. And when AF gets these topics, they're going to look at these and they're going to have to decide. Now, commonly in debate, when you're looking at resolutions, you're going to see a few kind of confusing words or abbreviations. For instance, they say THB. The heck is THB? This is this House believes. Now we're going to talk about definitions and what to do with those in a different video as far as how to write debate cases. So look for that one. But for today's just kind of walking through the event, we just know that means this House believes. So this House believes in today's modern world, a college education is no longer necessary to attain top-paying jobs. Now, again, if you're going affirmative, you're going to need to analyze this from an affirmative point of view. The affirmative team, you and your partner, are going to need to decide which of these topics to strike first. Second topic, this House believes the United States needs to do more to prevent computer hacking attacks. Or this House believes increased technology use is harming the traditional family unit. Okay. So these are all technology-focused topics. You have topics from all over the place. But what the affirmative team needs to do is they need to say which of these topics we want to strike first. Strike meaning this one we don't want to debate. So, for instance, in this one, the affirmative might say, I don't want to do this. And they're going to draw a line through it saying, we do not want this one. And then they're going to hand this piece of paper over to the negative team. And the negative team is going to figure out which one they are going to strike. So the negative team now looks at the two remaining, and they say, okay, this House believes the modern world college education is no longer necessary to obtain top-paying jobs, or this House believes increased technology use is harming the traditional family unit. So we're going to strike, we as the negative team, we're going to strike this one. The topic that is remaining, this is the one now that the teams are going to be debating. This is your official resolution for the round. This House believes in today's modern world, a college education is no longer necessary to obtain top-paying jobs. So now one of the teams, I don't care personally as a judge which team stays, which one goes, but one of the teams is going to leave and go out into the hall. The other team is going to stay in the room. And now you're going to write your cases. You have 15 minutes to write your cases. Again, watch the video on how to write a parliamentary debate case, and that will walk you through exactly what to do with this topic. And you can go from there. But let's fast forward 15 minutes. You now have both written your cases. The teams are going to come in. Now, to make this easier, I'm going to try to identify some things here. Let me do this in Sharpie so I can see it up on the top of the upper camera. On one side, we've got the affirmative team. And on the other side, we've got the negative team with their two speakers. Okay? So for sake of explanation, we're going to call the first person the first affirmative. And this one is the second affirmative. Okay? And over here on this side of the room, you're going to put two desks together. We've got the first neg and the second neg. Okay, so this is kind of how you're going to sit. First affirmative, first negative, second negative. Next thing is, in a typical round, one of the competitors is going to say to the judge, who's sitting over here, this is our judge, do you have any paradigms? What this means is you're asking the judge if there's certain things the judge is looking for when they are judging the round. This will kind of give you a good idea as far as what you're looking at as far as the judge. Now, if the judge says, I like this and this and this and this, and they're very, very specific about what they like from debate, okay, you have an experienced judge sitting there. And so the round's going to need to be a little more structured for, actually debate rules. I mean, it doesn't mean you can break rules with a community judge, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. If the judge is like paradigms, I don't even know what that means. That's a pretty good indication that you have a beginning level judge or a community judge, someone who does not know what they're doing. And in that case, you can almost slip into being a little more persuasive in your arguments because they're not going to know all the ins and outs of how debate works. So you can kind of get a good sense of your judge by asking that question. Your paradigms is what it's called. Okay, so now it's time to actually start the round. First affirmative, they're going to stand up. They have 7 minutes to present the case you just wrote in the classroom or in the hall. 7 minutes to go through that and read that case, present that to the judge. So now all this information is good, it's active, it's ready to go in the round because you just presented it. Now, as the affirmative is giving his speech, your 7-minute speech, there's something you got to be aware of. The first minute of that speech is what we call protected time. That's allowing you to get up and running. And the last minute of your speech, that's going to be protected time so that you have that minute to wrap up. But everything in between is what we call unprotected time. If the negative team, either one of these guys, has questions, they can stand up and ask you questions. So you're going to be in the middle of presenting your case, and in your peripheral vision, you're going to see them rise, stand up. Now, you can do a couple things here. First of all, you can say, do you have a question? And they'll blah, 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 they'll ask a question. Typically, they're trying to clarify things that you might have said, or they're trying to trip you up in your logic, something to that effect. So they're going to ask a quick question. You're going to answer that question. They'll sit down, and then you continue on with your case. Now, you can also say, I'm not taking questions right now, and then they'll have to sit back down. I would recommend, though, taking the questions. It can help fill some of your time if you're unsure of how to fill that time. And sometimes when you're not taking questions, you can kind of look jerky, like you don't want to go there. And as debaters, you do need to go there. Once you're done with your 7 minutes, now the first negative has 8 minutes to present the negative case. And traditionally speaking, what the first negative is going to do is they're going to spend maybe 6 minutes presenting their negative side case. And then they're going to spend maybe 2 minutes or so going through and arguing one by one against your points. So the affirmative team said this in their case. This is how we're going to respond to it. This is why that's not true. This is why that's not valid. In their second contention, the affirmative team said this. This is why that's not valid. Okay? So the first negative's got 8 minutes to do all that. Present the case and to go through and just do a quick point-by-point highlight of their arguments against the affirmative case. Now, this needs to happen here in this first negative speech. If you wait until the second negative speech, there's no time for the affirmative to respond to it. And that's kind of not cool, not fair, it's just not a good sportsman thing to do. So make sure you present your arguments in that first speech so that there's actually time to do this. Okay, so now both sides have had a chance to go. Now it's the second affirmative's turn. The second affirmative has 8 minutes now to do a couple things. First of all, and this is whatever order you want to do, whatever order you want to. The negative will have presented stuff against the affirmative's case in this speech. So one of the first things that the affirmative needs to do is they need to combat that. So in the negative's arguments against us, they said blah, 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 blah. This is why that is not true. This is why the affirmative case stands. You need to rebuild all those arguments that they just tried to tear down. Next thing that you need to do is you need to actually, attack their case. So here's all the stuff that the negative team brought up And here's why, we're going to go through it point by point by point. This is why this is not true. Bring up examples, bring up illustration, bring up, it doesn't mean you can draw, but bring things up that you can use to argue that case. So you have to cover both arguing against the first negative speech, and you have to rebuild any arguments that were brought against you as well. So now your 8 minutes is up. Now you need to sit down. Now it's the second negative's turn. And the second negative now has 8 minutes to again do pretty much the same thing. Anything on their side that's been argued, he or she's got to be able to back that up. And then he's got to rebuild anything that you brought down against the first negative when you were arguing that. So it's kind of this back and forth. They said this is why they're wrong. In our section, we said this is why we continue to be right. The biggest thing that you have to do here is keep yourself organized, because the judge is going to need to know what it is you're arguing, and you're going to need to know what you're arguing as well. So really good notes is key. Make sure you're tracking everything that they say so that it all goes back and forth. And I can do a video later as far as how I recommend flowing, which is the art of documenting a debate round. These are called constructive speeches. These are where you're building arguments, you're adding new things into it, you're backing up everything you do. So remember, in each of these speeches, you need to account for questions, because the other team might be asking you questions, and you need to kind of watch and monitor that. If they stand up, that's why they're doing so. Okay, so now every person in the room has spoken for some amount of time. Now here's where things get really interesting. The next speech, the negative has just spoken with an 8-minute speech. Now we're going to finish constructive speeches, and we're going to move into rebuttals. And the first person to do the rebuttal is going to be the first negative. Now, they just finished speaking. The second negative just sat down. The first negative is going to go up again, and he's going to give his rebuttal speech, which is 4 minutes in length. So that means the negative team has just given an 8-minute speech, and now they're speaking for 4 minutes. That's a lot of negative information. The big thing to realize here is that in these speeches, these are just what we call rebuttal speeches. You can't add new arguments. You can't add new evidence. You can't add new examples in these speeches. These are just summary speeches. And in these speeches, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be giving your voters. You're going to actually say this word. Here are my voters. The judge is looking for that word. The voters are the reasons why your team has won the round. That could be something that you've said that you feel is really relevant to the round. Could be something that they said that you properly argued that goes in there. But typically we have 1, 2, and 3 voters per side. Okay? So here are the top 3 reasons why we win the round. And that's what the negative team is going to be doing in that 4 minutes, as well as any other arguments that need to be brought up. But no new arguments in rebuttals. This is only summary speeches. And finally, once the negative is all done, it goes back to the first affirmative to do their rebuttal speech. These guys, you now have 5 minutes in this last speech of the round to do the affirmative voters. Nope. Here's the top 3 reasons why we, on the affirmative side, have won the round. Affirmative always starts the round. Affirmative always ends the round. You get the first word, you get the last word. Okay? But keep in mind that in this 5-minute speech, you have 12 minutes of information to cover. So you need to move quickly and make good use of your time. And not talk so fast that nobody can even understand you. Talk crisply, talk clearly, but that is the point of this speech. And actually say, here are our voters. Once that's done, the round is done. That is the last speech. Now, the reason I bring this up is that you and your partner, when you're writing your case, you need to figure out who's going to be the first affirmative or the first negative, who's going to be in each position, because whoever is presenting the case does that last rebuttal, or whoever is presenting the negative case does that rebuttal. So one person on the team is going to be speaking twice. The other person on the team is only going to be speaking once. You don't have to fulfill the same roles every single time. I would recommend looking at the topic. say who's got the strengths here, who wants to present the case and do the rebuttal. Or maybe I know more about this particular topic than someone else. That means I'm going to be doing it. But figure out who's going to be first speaker and second speaker, depending on who's going to be doing the most speaking. That's all up to you. So that is in quick nutshell here in this video, how a parliamentary debate round works. Here's the order of things. Here's how long everyone speaks for. So that way you kind of have a sense of what this is going to look like when you go into the round and you see exactly what happens. We're going to do practice rounds in practice so you get a chance to do this. But when you're first learning and when you're first trying to decide, is this a good event for you, you kind of get a good sense of how this works through this way.